Yeah, they'll tell you only on Sunday you go there. Don't go on the weekend.
Somewhere in the heart of nearly every young person, there lies a basic desire to make the world a better place.
It's way more satisfying.
And in cities across the country, people living in the streets are one of the most in-your-face examples that something's wrong.
You want it in Spanish?
Yeah.
All right. When I went through it, that was when I really was like, you know what, I should just jump off a bridge.
So today, for our first episode, CAPP-USA looks at homelessness and how young volunteers at a high-tech soup kitchen are using Catholic social teaching to make their dreams of helping others a reality.
We're looking at a vision for how a society can be.
And as the organization gears up for the holiday crush, we take the conversation to the next level by acknowledging the limits of a charitable institution's ability to help.
Charitable institutions are there to take up the slack, not take up when society completely says we're not going to do this.
All this and more on See, Judge, and Act.
The Lord be with you. Lift up your hearts. Let us give thanks, O Lord our God.
At first look, the Brooklyn neighborhood of Bedford-Stuyvesant appears to be a far cry from a kingdom of heaven on earth. One of the most obvious reasons is its high rate of homelessness. Vanessa Simpson was somebody who experienced homelessness firsthand.
Homelessness is not, it's not something you want on your worst enemy.
She says it was bad because being homeless and hungry took away her basic dignity.
I couldn't, deal with it. And then the fact that I had kids too, that was even worse.
Luckily for Vanessa, over 100 years ago, Pope Leo XIII wrote about the issues affecting a rapidly industrializing world. He saw people like Vanessa and equated the lack of human dignity associated with her homelessness to the onset of complex forces unleashed by modernity and what we now call the Industrial Revolution. And so he outlined and formalized a tradition which has become known as Catholic social teaching. Tony Butler, the CEO of one of Bed-Stuy's largest charitable organizations, St. John's Bread and Life, is among the many deeply inspired by that tradition. Tony says that Catholic social teaching helps his organization do far more than simple charitable works.
Catholics, and when they embrace the social teaching, have an obligation to do this in the marketplace and to be prophetic and take those tough stances.
Did you sign?
But before we go any further, what are these simple principles of Catholic social teaching? Well, you're about to find out. What makes Bread and Life high-tech is the internal workings of a modern food pantry that also helps to illustrate Catholic social teaching. So watch carefully as we break this down. You'll be able to use this to change the world. First, they acknowledge that the most basic right, the right of human dignity, is not being met. Remember Vanessa Simpson? Now in a home of her own, Vanessa works at Bread and Life, and her stance towards each client starts with the principle of human dignity.
They have the right for me to give them as much services as they need. No matter how many times they come here, they have that right. You understand? Because it's not their fault they're in the situation they're in.
That acknowledgement to ensure and advance human dignity is the basis of CST. Second, the organization puts into practice the principle of solidarity, as taught by John Paul II, that solidarity is not, quote, a vague compassion or shallow distress at the misfortune of so many people. On the contrary, it's a firm and persevering determination to commit oneself to the common good. And third is subsidiarity. The organization at Bread and Life has been able to act by undertaking, quote, only those tasks which are beyond the capacity of individuals and private groups acting independently.
Subsidiarity, which says that we should not take away from the individual what they're capable of doing for themselves. And that's a difficult balance for Bread and Life, because we give a lot of stuff away.
Tony's organization doesn't just give a lot of stuff away, but rather it is built on a structure to ensure that those who need help have the right to choose exactly what help they need. As Pope Pius XI said, quote, "It's an injustice to assign to a greater and higher association what lesser and subordinate organizations can do." This is tremendously important in Catholic social teaching, and that's what the principle of subsidiarity is all about. So here's how it looks. A person walks in needing groceries. They walk up to a kiosk. There's a correct view of the human person, that they have a right to be there. Bread and Life, as an organization, fulfills its commitment to the common good. And by using technology, that person has input on the extent of their benefit. For example, what type of food they want. Catholic social teaching and action happens on different scales. Remember all those young people moving boxes? Well, during the holidays, instead of just packing generic presents, Bread and Life asks people in need what type of family they have. Then, volunteers choose presents dependent on how many kids the family has and whether those kids are boys or girls. Because of this, a lot of young volunteers do their part to fulfill those requests one at a time. They are living the principles of CST in action. And so, in the end, we have a service provider, a CEO, young volunteers, and those living without a home, united and universally connected through faith, love, the principles of Catholic social teaching, and more importantly, participating in making real the kingdom of heaven on earth, even in Bedford-Stuyvesant.